Each fall, thousands of students enter and return to tranquil college campuses, eager to continue their studies. But as the bells in the ivory towers toll on to mark the lengthening histories of academic excellence, they also add to the lengthening history of an atrocious war over public education that began nearly a decade ago. It was 2008, and the nation was swept by economic turmoil following the Great Recession.
Because we're now down 43%.
With states struggling to balance their budgets, legislators across the entire country looked for places to cut spending. The nation subsequently saw sweeping cuts to funding for public higher education at some of the nation's premier research institutions. But this prescription came with adverse side effect. Plummeting budgets were accompanied by proportional increases in tuition in order to offset the deficit, and the burden was placed on the student and their families. But as the national economy recovered, the question soon became, what is the future of funding for public higher education? Two conflicting ideologies rose to the forefront of national debate. The question became, what purpose should public higher education serve to its students, and at what cost? The prevailing thinking and status quo is that of the left. They support the idea that public higher education should provide citizens with an education in any subject matter.
It may not be all bad that some students don't study science and math.
Furthermore, this education should not be focused solely around the learning of a skill, but how to research, investigate, and analyze. While this model is responsible for putting American universities ahead of the rest of the world, it also happens to be an expensive model, funded largely by the government. The right lies in stark contrast to the left, pushing for reform in the thinking about public higher education. The conservative movement wishes to see public higher education provide students with the marketable skills necessary to answer the needs of the economy.
The student investment plan. And this would allow you to go to a private investment group who would invest in you the way an investment group invests in a startup business. In essence, they would believe in you so much and in your success that they would pay for your college. If you become financially successful, they're going to make their investment back with a profit. If you do not, they're going to lose their money and be a bad investment. But all the risk is on them.
This additionally means that public higher education will trim its spending and streamline its framework to give students what they need faster. The crux of achieving both of these philosophies lies in the funding of higher education. Thus, a battle began all across the country over higher education, what it should offer, and how to pay for it. Conservative economics pushes for less government involvement and therefore less funding from the government towards institutions of higher education. Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker has become one of the leading Republicans at the front of this movement. Governor Walker signed a budget cut of $250 million for the Wisconsin university system before making a run for president. Similarly, in Louisiana, Governor Bobby Jindal reduced state spending on higher education. During the start of the Great Recession, 60% of Louisiana's budget was devoted towards higher education. By the end of Governor Jindal's administration, that higher education accounted for just 25% of the budget. In North Carolina, approximately $700 million was removed from the budget for higher education, followed by another $63 million in 2016. The budget cuts across numerous states follow the guidelines for conservative economics and push towards improving higher education by forcing it to become more fiscally responsible. To the 2016 Republican platform, it is the time for higher education to balance its worth against its negative economic impact on students and their families. The left sees the situation as being in need of the exact opposite. The left hopes to return federal funding directly to public higher education and exceed the funding levels prior to the Great Recession.
When we invest in the best ideas, before anybody else does, our businesses and our workers can make the best products and deliver the best services before anybody else. And because of that incredible dynamism, we don't just attract the best scientists or the best entrepreneurs. We also continually invest in their success. We support labs and universities to help them learn and explore, and we fund grants to help them turn a dream into a reality.
On the heels of the Obama administration, Bernie Sanders, and Hillary Clinton's platform, the left hopes to fund higher education to the point that no student will need to take out loans. Senator Sanders went so far as to propose free college to all kids that wish to take advantage of the opportunity.
40 million Americans have student loans. Together, they owe $1.2 trillion.
Clinton's plan to rein in higher ed costs doesn't go quite as far as Sanders. He wants to make tuition totally free at state schools. She would make community colleges free and steer federal funds to state schools that don't make their students take out loans.
in a very competitive global economy. What we have to say, if we want to compete, we're going to have colleges and universities tuition-free in the United States of America.
Furthermore, much of the party has warmed to the idea of giving all students access to free community college. Combating the new conservative approach to financing higher education, the left argues that defunding of public institutions will bring more detriment than benefit. Yet, this is exactly what the right believes caused the issue in the first place. Schools were getting too much money and were being inefficient in how they used it. If given less, the schools would be forced to make better use of it. Art Pope, the man who funds the John William Pope Center for Higher Education, argues that cuts would force universities to, quote, eliminate wasteful and inefficient spending on campus. This harkens back to the conservative approach that education ought to be streamlined to offer students more education that meets market demand in less time for less cost.
And the fourth is called Right to Know Before You Go, which I'm working on with Ron Wyden, a Democrat from Oregon. And what that law says is that before you take out a loan, schools have to tell you how much people make when they graduate from that school with a degree that you're seeking. Why is that important? Number one, it will probably teach you that the market for Roman philosophers has tightened significantly.
Cutting funding is the proprietary means to achieve this paradigm shift, but it comes with further alterations to the system. This involves reducing or eliminating tenure to save money and allow universities to have a malleable staff.
The budget gives the system more flexibility they've been asking for on purchasing and building, but also eliminates the definition of a tenure appointment from state law and provides that tenured faculty can be fired.
This new model of higher education serves to create more competitive schools in order to offer students the best education for the lowest cost. However, American public universities have reached the forefront of worldwide higher education through the very model which conservatives now oppose. The left stands behind this model, arguing that defunding will destroy the facets of public higher education which brought them to the top. The left raises concerns over the effects of defunding of tenure, a facet of academia which they feel has been integral in growing the reputation of U.S. research institutions.
Once faculty tenure is removed, academic freedom is under siege. They are both integrally connected. Without faculty tenure, there is a threat to academic freedom.
By having professors free to research and teach without threat or fear of termination, they are able to produce high-caliber research for the university. While the conservative approach holds that tenure serves only to keep outdated and irrelevant professors at the forefront of academia, the left feels that higher education would be lost without it. Ultimately, the left feels that defunding higher education and treating it as a marketplace of consumers and producers of degrees results in an overall decline in knowledge. They argue that universities must be able to give citizens the ability to think, analyze, and contribute to society beyond their role in the national economy. By defunding higher education, the right holds that you lose the budget to unwarranted and unnecessary education in the liberal arts and that which the economy does not demand. To the party and its allies, it is about time that public higher education attempt to change from its rigid history. Education and how to educate are important for any society to discuss. The United States is at a pivotal moment in its history regarding the future of public higher education. With two highly contrasting philosophies for the future, one of measured efficiency and one of variable procedure, only time will tell which party's class will come to session.